Okay, so we're going to set up the Canon EOS RP, and we're going to start with the date, and you have to hit the set button in order to activate, and then as you hit the set button again, those arrows will go off, the up and down arrows. So hit the set, change the date. Today is June 17th. And you have to hit the set button again. You hit the right arrow button and hit that. There we go. Hit the set again. And today is the 17th. And so we've got that. You hit the set again, move over. It is 2020. And the time right now is 1:54. And this is in 24-hour clock. So that would be 13... all the way to 54. We'll go backwards. We'll make it 55. And now we need to change the month and well, what? Okay, that's our format. Whoops. There we go. Hit set. Go down here to London. Okay, we want that off. That's if you want to go daylight savings time, I don't. We'll keep that off. We'll hit OK. Now we've got our time set. Now we're back to our screen. We hit our menu button. And we're going to go through these one by one. Image quality. To change to RAW, you have to use, as you can see up in the top right corner, it's right behind your shutter release and the function button. And you can see it over there. You can move that around. We want regular RAW. Do not want JPEG at all. I just want RAW. So I said, okay, if you only want JPEG, you would leave the RAW in the minus sign, and you would change the size of your JPEG by using your left and right arrow. I don't like JPEGs, don't use them, I only use RAW. So there we go, and I hit set again. If you hit it back, there we go. We're still at RAW with no JPEG. To set it, hit OK. Now, cropping, okay, we're on full cropping. You can change this to 1.6. If you put on the RF2, or excuse me, yes, the RF to EF lens adapter, it'll automatically change to the 1.6 setting. You can change it to 1:1, 4:3, 16:9. Just hit your left and right arrows, but we're leaving it on full. Hit OK. Image review, 2 seconds. You can change that whatever you want. 2 seconds is fine with me. Hit OK. Release shutter without card. We do not want to release the shutter without the card. Release shutter without card is off. That means you can't take a picture unless you have your SD card in there, and that's happened to me before, and I didn't notice, had to turn around and go back and take some pictures. So you cannot take the picture without a card in there with that setting. Go to number 2, lens aberration correction. That's on. Just leave that on. That helps with Lightroom, things like that. I don't really change anything there. Hit menu to go back where we were. External speedlight control. It's enabled. When you put your flash on there, it'll work. I leave those as they are. No reason to change those. If you want to, certainly go back and do that. Okay, number 3 is where you find your exposure compensation. These settings, okay, I leave that one there. This next one's important, your ISO speed settings. Okay, leave those at auto, but we want to top it out. So I don't like it to go any higher than 6400. That's even a little high, but this camera is great. This camera handles high ISOs very well. I just don't like to go above 6400, so we're going with that. Okay, and we'll hit OK. And the auto range, this is if you have it in auto settings. And again, just go down to 64. You can go down 32, 16, whatever you want. 64 I find works pretty well. Minimum shutter speed. If you're using this for street photography, things like that, you don't want, and you want to put it in some sort of auto mode, you don't want it to go any lower or any slower than maybe 1/125th. And that's what it's set at. I would leave it at that. If you're doing street photography, maybe even 250. You can change it however you want. Whoops, let's go back to manual. So we've left it at the minimum shutter speed 1/125th. This is if you do have it in auto settings of some sort, program, auto, aperture priority, that sort of thing. But if you're in manual, it makes no difference anyway. So, okay, for your photo, for video, This is your ISO speed settings here. I just leave that at 25/600. I'm not a video guy, so I use it for video, but it seems to do what it wants to do, and it does fine like that. This is something we'll come back to later, highlight tone priority. I like to use this a lot. You would just put it to enable D, but we're going to leave it off for the moment, and we're going to go into, later on, we're going to go into, well, when we get there, we'll go to My Menu, and we'll put this for easy access, but for right now, we're just going to leave it off. And I don't mess with any of these. So let's go to number 4, white balance, leave it at auto. You can play with the custom white balance. I don't do any of that. Picture style. You've got your differences here. Just make sure if you have it in something like, now you can put monochrome, whatever. If you leave it in one of these, make sure when you go back out the next time, you change it back. I like to just leave it in auto or standard. Works fine. Typically, I use standard. I don't see that there's any difference there, really. There isn't. So I leave it in standard so that you would change it from auto to standard. Go to number 5, long exposure noise reduction. Leave that off. That can screw up your photos. Don't mess with that. I leave. Okay, we'll come back to touch shutter. We're going to put that on our My Menu because that's a great feature. We'll use that. And focus bracketing is something you can use as well. We'll come back to a couple of those. This is where you're going to find your interval timer. And if you enable it, then you can tell it how many photos to take and things like that. So, okay, number of shots, all that sort of stuff there. If you turn the camera off, turn it back on, it's going to reset this back to disabled. So we'll leave this disabled for now. And that's all I mess with on that. Okay, operation mode or autofocus. This is if you're just taking pictures. Click, click, click here and there. Servo is if you have a moving object, if you're shooting sports, that sort of thing. So one shot's typically what I leave it on. Okay, your autofocus method. This is something we'll be putting in the My Menu for easy access. You can track. It's got great tracking on it. I typically leave it in spot or 1 point AF, which is kind of like center. And but this is really good if you're out street photography, shooting any sort of animals, anything moving. But right now we'll leave it at 1 point. The eye detection, autofocus. We'll get to that. Continuous autofocus. That's something you can have in there if you want or not. And focus mode right now is in autofocus. You can change it to manual focus. That will also go into My Menu. They don't do anything with these. Okay, now with this one I do. I don't like that beam. You don't really need that. Especially if you're shooting around people, it's annoying, so I disable it. Don't mess with these. And here we go with the movie. I've decided I kind of like the HD 30 frames per second, which is 2997. This does have 24. They tell you it doesn't, but it does have 24 frames per second right there. I kind of like the look right now of the 29, well, of the 30. But if you're going for cinematic look, you'll want to go over here to the 24. All the videos tell you there is no 24. They're old videos. They do have 24 in there. So there we go. Leave that there. Now we're moving on to this. Protect your images, rotate images. This all just... this is where you go if you want to erase images on your card. You can either select the whole card, just a folder, that sort of thing. I don't want to erase anything. Move over here. You can go in here and do a bunch of processing. We're not going to get into all that. Cropping. Again, this is post stuff. You can read up on all this stuff. Playback information. Highlight alert is interesting. What that does is if you take a photo and then something's blown out, it'll start flashing, but it's after that, after the fact. Kind of interesting and nice. And again, we'll move on here. This is where you select your folders, do anything you want to do in here. Now we're into eco mode. I typically don't mess with any of this stuff. Okay, I do here. I'm sorry. The beep control. I do not like it beeping. So I don't want any beeping. Turn it off. Disable it. Get it out of there. Okay, so we're on shooting info display. We'll hit that. Now we're on screen info settings. Go ahead and hit set again, and we continue on into the, here we go. Here's your options, things that'll show up on the screen if you want it to. I like this one. I do not like this one. I do not like this one. Don't need it. Do not like this one. but this one is good. Well, this is good also. Okay, so this is what you see in the viewfinder as you're taking the photo. And as you can see in the bottom left, we've got our 1/125th shutter speed. We've got our f5.6 aperture. We've got our exposure compensation should we need it. We've got our ISO. Those are all, you can touch those with your finger and go into those, and that's what I like. So let's get out of here and go to OK. And then we'll show you more on that later. If you want to turn your grid on, you can do it here. You can see you've got your rule of thirds there, and I don't like any of that. I don't need that, but that's where you would find that. Histogram brightness, if you like your histogram. I took mine out. I don't like the histogram. I took it out, and we'll talk about that later as well. So let's go back to our menu, and now we'll go over to 5. This is where you get your wireless settings, your Wi-Fi settings, setup, that sort of thing. You just have to go through and figure that one out. Okay, so here, custom shooting mode. Okay, by the way, you put your copyright information here if you want. You click that, you enter your name, and we'll just go ahead and do that right now. Boom. You can do this all by touching it as well, touching the screen, but the way I've got this set up here, I've got it on my TV, so I'm sure there's some glare. It doesn't look great, but this is the only way I could do it. I couldn't figure out how to get it into my computer, and I had HDMI cables, so I just hooked it up like this, and now I've got a video camera actually videotaping it. So boom, that's my name, Jason Dozier. And I always, since I have jasondozier.com on my website, I like to just go ahead and make my copyright also jasondozier.com. There we go. And let's see if we hit that. Whoop, we don't really need that, but okay. And then we'll go back. So I'm now going to hit set or hit menu. Okay, it's been selecting the setting on the screen. Okay, so we want to hit OK. So we should have it in there. Yep, jasondozier.com. There it is. Okay, so we go back to menu. Just cancel that. Any details you want to put in there. Again, anything. Again, this is self-explanatory. Not self-explanatory, but you need to learn your way around the camera. It won't be in this video. You'll be learning all of that. I do have the updated firmware 1.4. Okay. Now the custom shooting modes. This is. I don't mess with these. You can set up custom modes, but I shoot in manual, and this camera is so flexible and it has so many options that we'll show you here in my menu that I just don't mess with it. So again, I don't really mess with any of these that I'm aware of. Here we go, my menu. This is what you want to set up to get easy access to the things you need to find when you're out in the field. So we're going to add a my menu tab. So you hit set, yes, tab number 1. Now configure. Okay, so now we're going to hit set again. Select items. There's a lot of items on here, so let's go through the ones we want. These are just going to be, again, things in the when we're in the field, quick things we need to get to. We don't want any of that. Don't want that. These would be silly to put in the My Menu. These have already been set. Highlight tone priority. We want that, so I hit yes. I hit OK. Now that one's in there. You see it's unhighlighted, so that means it's in there. Okay, the next one we need to put in is touch shutter. Like this. This allows you to touch the display screen on the back, and it will take the photo. You don't have to press down on the shutter release, and that's good. You can be very discreet, very stealthy in the field, but it's also nice in certain situations. You just don't have to. Focus bracketing, that could be interval timing. If you do a lot of that, that would be one you'd want to put on there. I don't do that. Here we go. AF operation. This allows you to go from autofocus to manual focus. Autofocus method, we want that as well. I'll show you what those do. Eye detection autofocus, yes, we want that as well. It limits, it only gives you a few. Let's see, what was the other? Well, wait a minute, focus mode. I'm gonna have to go back and look what focus mode. I think that was the one we needed, so we might have to go back and change one here. And I think, okay, so let's go back and look what we've got. Now, so here's my menu now. So I can take the highlight tone priority. If I'm out, it's real bright out or something, and I want to make sure I don't blow anything out completely. Just go in there and hit enable. Boom. Simple as that. Disable. Boom. Simple as that. touch shutter. I want to enable that, and that means when you then have something you want to take a photo of, it will, you just touch the shutter and it'll do that for you. Okay, auto. Okay, we didn't want this one on there. Okay, AF operation, we do not want on there. AF method, that's where we get to choose our tracking and what have you. Okay, we want that one up there. What is wrong with that? Oh, I've got it set in autofocus mode. Not available because the associated function setting, AF, okay. Here we go. If you put this in tracking, then you can get, okay, that's what it is. If you put it in tracking, because if you have it on spot or spot AF, let's see if it works on, no, it doesn't work on spot AF. If you have it on these, you're telling it specifically to only focus on these. If you put it on tracking, then it will follow, it will pick up the eyes of whoever you're photographing. This is awesome for portrait photography, for street photography, but for portrait photography, you never have to worry about trying to focus on the eyes again. It automatically will focus on the eyes first. So you want that, but you want to turn it off if you're in a crowd and you want to choose who to take a picture of. Otherwise, it might just grab somebody randomly, and that's not what you want. So that's how that works. And then this is the one we wanted here, focus mode. You go to manual focus or autofocus. So we want to go back, we want to get rid of AF operation. We'll go back to configure, delete a selected item. That's our selected item, delete it. Now we've got one hole left. So let's go back to select items to register. And there was one more on here that I want. Okay, so the one I'm looking for here is sound recording. That's what I needed, because when I do sound recording, I do have the Rode Video Mic Pro Plus, and I like to put it in manual mode. So there we go. That's the one I was looking for, sound recording. So if we go back to our menu, now I have my sound recording, and that allows you to, if you click that, you can go to manual. You can see right now it's picking me up talking into the camera right now, although it's not recording. And if I go manual, then I can come down here and I can take this setting, and you can see these drop down dramatically. So what this is doing, you don't really want it down this low. What you're going for, and actually I found that the default setting isn't too bad, again, if you're doing video, because right now, as you can see, although it's not really pointed, it's going up there. That's a little high. Yeah, that's too high. And when you put the mic on, basically you want to go about halfway. This would be perfect right here. And when you get there, you hit set, and that will set it halfway. Now you see I'm not even getting into the yellow, but I'm not talking into the camera. And when I have the Rode microphone on there, it's going to sound fantastic. And therefore, that's where it would probably go up into the yellow, but you do not want it peaking. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there, but normally I may want to go auto or what have you. So anyway, those are the settings in my menu that I use. Highlight tone priority, the touch shutter, autofocus method, and then with that, the eye detection autofocus. Again, normally, if I'm just out shooting, not shooting people, I will, or not photographing people, I guess you have to say these days, I would put it on 1-point autofocus, and of course, eye detection's not available. And then we have the focus mode. I can go manual if I want, or autofocus. And the sound recording, I've locked it into manual, but can go back and change it to auto if I want. So those are my settings. That is basically how you would use these settings. There's so many different things here that you can get into and dig into that we just really can't go over here. Your Wi-Fi settings, you can enable it. You got to show your password, or actually ask if you want to show a password or require it or not. So there's a lot you can dig into there, but basically just to use your camera, I think we've covered all our settings. And again, let's see here. I will, that is how you would set up your Canon EOS RP. Hopefully you found this interesting and helpful. If you did, please let me know. That'll help me. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll have more videos coming up featuring the Canon RP, also the Ricoh GR3 and some other cameras as well as street photography if they ever open up the streets. So that's going to do it for this video, guys. Certainly do appreciate you checking it out, and we'll see you on the next one.